Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be focusing on another Notes app. I did a video about 2 years ago where I talked about Apple Notes, OneNote, and spent a fair amount of time on Evernote. Over the past 10 to 15 years, Evernote's been my main go-to app. I have kind of driven my wife a little crazy here and there as I've switched back and forth on apps a little bit. But within the past year or so, when Bending Spoons bought out Evernote, they drastically increased the pricing. And ever since then, it's hard to stomach $170 is what I believe it is right now per year to use Evernote. When before it only cost, I think at one point it was mainly around $40-50. It might have been sitting at $60 last time I renewed, but to increase by $100, it kind of caused me to start looking around again. I remember a few years ago, I looked at an app called Bear. And at the time, it was very simplistic, which is nice. I don't need anything overly fancy, but it was a little on the simplistic side and just didn't quite do the things that I wanted. But within this past year, they have released version 2.0, so I figured, hey, why not? Let's give it another look. And when I jumped in and started looking around, it really did the things I wanted it to do. Now, if you do want to skip ahead and just get right into the demo of Bear apps, feel free to use the chapter markers below and you can jump right ahead and get into that. But I do want to take a few minutes and just talk about some of the pros and cons and kind of why I've actually made that switch. So for me as a note taker, I have certain things I really need to be able to do well, and Bear Notes kind of hit those pieces right on the money. The biggest thing is the organization structure. It uses tags to create the base organization on the left-hand side, which you'll see in just a bit. And the nice thing with it is you can attach multiple tags to the same note. Now, for me, as the band teacher as my main job, I also run the IT department in 2 different school districts. I need to keep organized. And a lot of times, especially with the IT department in both districts, I have notes that apply to both places on procedures and things like that. And I don't want to have to remember, oh, I need to go into this school district to see these notes and this school district to see these notes. Instead, I can just put a tag for both districts and it's there. If I make a change in the note, it shows up within both, which makes it super easy for the organization. The other piece that I really like about it is simplistic. Now that can work against it in the same way. If things are too simple, it might not have all the features you want. And the other piece with that is sometimes when things are so simple, it can be tricky to find certain features. That's one of my issues with Apple all the time over the years, is they simplify things so much, it actually makes it kind of hard to find some of the features. And when I first really started getting into using Bear Notes, I was on my iPhone trying to figure out how to take a photo and put it into a note. I couldn't figure it out. I eventually had to go to the support site where they do have wonderful tutorials and walkthroughs and explanations on how to do just about everything. So I really commend them on that. And as soon as I found out how to do it, it was a piece of cake. But again, it was such a simplistic interface, I didn't even see that feature was there in order to get to that part, which then opened up a whole wealth of other features that I could do. And the other piece for me is I really like that simplistic view because I do take photos, track, like when we take the car into the shop, I track those receipts so I can see the history. When we take our animals to the vet, I can view those receipts at any time. So I want to be able to put those things in there along with medical records and stuff like that. Does those things really, really well. And I like how it displays within the note. For me, it just makes complete sense. For others, Apple Notes might be just fine. I didn't need the folder organization on top of the tagging. Just for me, the way those two work together just didn't quite fit my needs. And that leads into, you need to find what works for you. What works well for me may not work well for the next person and the next person. So really, it's figure out the features that you want. And that's the nice thing. There are so many choices out there. You've got Bear, you've got Evernote, you've got Apple Notes, you've got OneNote, GoodNotes, Notability. Those are just 6 of the big ones. If you go into your store on your iPhone or your Android device, you will find tons and tons of Notes apps. So that's the great thing. It just gives you a lot of options to find the right app that fits your needs. And for me, Bear Notes fits my needs. And it's becoming more well known. So I definitely wanted to make a video just kind of showing it off a little bit and how I use it for my own needs. The other thing I really, really like about it is the cost. As I said, Evernote was running, I believe at this point, $169.99. Bear Notes, it's running at $299 per month or $29.99 per year. So the pricing is so much nicer. And I don't mind paying for something I use all the time. For me, organization is so important. I wouldn't be able to function if I couldn't keep my notes and my to-do list and my start emails. Those are the three pieces that I have that work all together. And at some point, I will do a video on how I keep myself organized, because maybe you can take some bits and pieces from that to help yourself out. It is just Apple related. It does not work on Android or Linux or Windows. It is just an Apple related program, which has its pros and cons. Its pros are that it's built into the Apple ecosystem, so they take advantage of a lot of the features. You can use Apple shortcuts to create shortcuts. I actually, for my new iPhone 15, that new action button, I created a shortcut that allows me to automatically pulls up the camera, takes a photo, and puts it right into a note. So if I'm at the vet and I want to take a picture of the receipt, it will automatically insert it into a note that I can later organize into the right section and add any more info I need. So if you are on different operating systems and live between the different ecosystems, this is probably not going to be the app for you. But if you're all in on Apple and that's where you live, this is definitely a great option for you to look at. The final piece before we jump into the actual demonstration of Bear Notes is talking about how it stores the notes and things like that. It's actually tied to your Apple account and stores all the notes in your iCloud. So it doesn't sync to any of their servers. They don't see any of your notes or anything at all. It is purely stored on your iCloud. They do have an option within the notes that you can set a password that will end-to-end encrypt it. The one caveat with that is if you have an attachment in there, it won't end-to-end encrypt that attachment. But you can set a password on every single note, which I'll show once we jump in. Which leads to, when we do jump in, I'm going to show an image first of what it might look like when you first get in. Because it's attached to my iCloud, there's no way I can clear everything out to show you kind of a fresh look to it. Before we jump into the demo, please hit that subscribe button down below and hit that little bell icon right next to it so you can stay up to date with all my latest video tutorials. I really appreciate all my subscribers, and I'm glad you find a lot of these videos helpful. So please hit that subscribe button if you do want to be kept in the loop when I put out new videos. So once you jump in, on the left hand side, you're going to see a couple basic categories. You're going to see notes, untagged, to do, today, locked, and trash. So any notes that aren't tagged will go into your untagged section. You can, within a note, make to-do lists. I wouldn't use it as an actual to-do list app. There's not much features related to it, but if you just need a simple checklist, like for example, when we do our pep band trips down to Bangor for tournament, I have a ton of instruments and there's a lot of things I have to remember to bring. And over the past 17 years, one year I forgot to bring the snare drum, which is kind of an important part of the drum set, and luckily we were able to borrow one from another school district for one of our games. But ever since then, I actually went in and made a to-do list of everything I need to make sure I bring when we head down. So as we pack up, I can just kind of quickly go through that. So it's kind of a very simplistic to-do list, but pretty handy for just checking things off. Your today view is just any notes you created that day. Locked are the ones I was talking about, where you can put a password on it and actually encrypt the note, and then trash is anything you've deleted. It'll stay in there. But this is kind of a quick view of what it looks like when you first come in. You'll notice there's nothing else. I think they'll have some image displays just showing that there's nothing there. But now I'm going to jump over to the actual filled out version. This is what it looks like when you actually get items in here. So I've already gone over that top left area. Just below that, it's going to show anything that you have created tags for. That's how all these, I don't want to call them folders because they're not technically folders. They are all tags. And I'll show how those are created in just a moment. Just to the right of that is your list of notes in that section. So if you just click on notes at the top left there, it will just show an alphabetical list, or however you have it set to sort, list of every single one of your notes included in every single tag. Now, within each tag, you can star a note or pin it, where it puts it to the top. So any of those pinned notes are going to show right here at the top And you'll see all these little red icons just to the left of the date. That symbolizes that it's been a pinned note and just stays at the top. And you'll see a few of these categories have arrows. So you can actually do something called nested tags, where it's a tag within a tag. So you can have like categories, or if you want to really think of it as like subfolders. Again, I really don't want to call them folders, but for just ease of understanding, that's the best way to explain it. So I've got a main heading here, which is one of the schools I work for, Central or Rustic. Underneath that, I have a section for the band, for the leadership committee I'm on, for the technology department, and just general work-related notes that I need to keep. And then further down here, you'll see Easton Technology, which is the other school district. I coach the golf team, so I have some different things under there. I've actually been doing it for 17 years now, but I just started using this app, so I just started tracking by season this past year. And I have some general information where I put generic reminders. I've got a pet section that has a category for each one of our animals, so you can kind of get the gist. The next column to the right shows all your notes in that section. So if I click on technology, it's going to show all the notes from that tag. If I click on work, it's going to show all the notes that are assigned to that tag. So depending which section I click on, it's going to show notes. It's going to show the notes that have that tag. You can, if you click at the top, the little arrow next to it, you can change its sorting order, how it's previewed, and how it looks in that list. So you can customize those things a little bit. And then to the right, you'll see the actual body of the note. So that's the 3 columns and what each part does. Now in the top left, you're going to see 3 little slider icon, and that's your preferences. And if you click on that, it's going to pull up the preferences. Now, as I mentioned, this is a very simplistic app. So overall, there aren't too many settings that you can actually adjust, which is, in some ways, it's kind of nice. The first is your general section, where you can choose some things with the editor. You can choose how you want a new note created. You can lock it after a certain amount of time if you choose to. And you can do some basic shortcuts. You've got the typography, which you can change the fonts, the sizes, and indents and things like that. Then if you click on themes, which is part of the paid version, you can choose some different themes that you can use. You can also change the app icon, and then it just gives you a little quick info. If you want to turn on iCloud Sync, turn it off, and then it tells you when the last sync was. So that's all there really is for your settings. Now for the notes column, if you click on the tag title at the top, you get those sorting options. You've got the little pencil icon to create a new note, and then you've got the search feature where you can search. Now the one thing about the create a note, if I am in my general notes category there at the top and I create a new note, it's going to create it untagged. So let me delete that. Now if I go down to like one of my technology folders, if I create a note within this tag section, it will actually auto tag it already with that tag area. So now I'm going to go back up to my notes, and now I'm going to create a new note. So when I create a new note, it just gives you an empty area. The number 1 here is the heading, so I can just type in a note title. This is a test note. And then if I enter down, I can start typing. And you can enter down and keep saying more things. If you want to start doing a bulleted list, you can start right out with the numbers, and it'll keep going down. And you can tab over to increase that. You can back out to go down and maybe do different orderings, however you need to lay it out. You've got all those options just from the typing. Now, this is the part that took me a little bit longer to figure out. In the program on your Mac, they leave down at the bottom here all your different options for fonts and checklists, bulleted numbered lists, changing your making your text bold, italicized, highlighted links, all that stuff. And they got the 3 dots, which allows you to do a few more things. On your iPhone or iPad, this is more hidden. And what you're going to see across the top here is this BIU. If I click on that, that bottom piece will go away. So if you don't see that, just click on that and it will show up. On your phone, if you click on that, it is going to open a whole new menu. And it just sits right above your keyboard. And that's where the take a photo option is and all those things. So it just took a little figuring out to find where that was. But on your iPhone and iPad, you click on that little text icon, the BIU, and that'll pop up all your options. And then under the little information, the I with a circle, if I click on that, it gives you some basic information about the note. And then if you click on the three dots, you can copy the link to a note. You can copy the identifier. You can copy the note in different types of formats. You can share it. You can export it. And you can do a few other things. And then under privacy, you can actually add a password to it. And if I do that, it will ask you for the password. And then you can put it in a hint if you want, because if you forget the password, there's nobody that can retrieve it. It is lost if you forget the password. So make sure it's a password that you can remember or have written down in your password manager or something along those lines. And if you set a password on a note, you can go back into that and it allows you to remove the password or you can change it. One of my favorite features of Bear Notes is the ability to link to other notes. This is not something that's unique to Bear Notes, but a lot of apps have been starting to add this feature over the past probably few months to a year. But this is what's really nice for teachers. So if you wanted to create a notebook for each of the classes that you teach, you can have like a top note that's kind of your overall plan. And then you can have like class 1, class 2, or week 1, week 2, depending on how you teach it, where you can create a link to that note that has all the information for that day's class. So for example, I want to create a link to my dinner list, which is a list of all of our dinners. So what you start by typing is 2 square brackets, and then you just start typing the name of a note. You don't have to have the full name. So if I'm going to insert dinner list, I just start typing and you'll see a list of all the notes that matches the symbols I have already typed show up. So if I click on dinner list, it will automatically close in the bracket. And if I hit enter, you won't see those after you hit enter. Let's create another one to pet birthdays. I'm going to select that. And when I hit enter, now if I click on dinner list, it's going to take me straight to that note. So if I go back to the previous note, and if I click on pet birthdays, it's going to take me straight to that note. One of my favorite features in this Notes app, and as I said, a lot of the other Notes apps have either had this feature for a little bit, just added it, or most likely will be adding it soon, as this is becoming a pretty popular feature. But for a teacher or even students, if you're trying to keep organized and keep all your notes linked together, this just gives you another tool in your box that you can create classes or other ways of organization. Again, the more ways to organize, the better. Now, to add tags or create tags, you can put a tag anywhere you want in the note. It doesn't have to be in specific areas. I always just tend to go at the bottom, and it starts with the pound sign or the hashtag symbol, and you just start typing. And I could say testing, I want to call it. And right now I don't have any note with that tag, and if you just noticed, possibly in the bottom left, a tag all of a sudden appeared in the list of all the tags called testing. And if I hit enter, there it shows up. If I create another one and call it again, you'll see in just a second on the left towards the top, the tag will appear again. Now to do nested tags where you have those subcategories of tags, again, start with a hashtag. I'm going to do New York. You can't have spaces in your tags. They all have to be either underscores or hyphens or just all together. Then I'm going to put a /. The / is what gives it that additional drop down. And then I'll do where I grew up. And what you're going to notice in just a second, if I hit enter, you're going to see New York now turn to a drop down arrow. And when I click on that, Rochester appears. You can go even further with this. You can put another / and I can put the town I grew up in. Hit enter. And now you're going to see under Rochester, now there's another drop down arrow and Avon's there. So you can have these multiple nested tags, which makes it really easy for organization. The other neat thing with it is if I come over here and I either use 2 fingers at the same time on the trackpad, which works as a right click if you didn't know, or I can hold down the control button on my keyboard and click on it. I can pin the tag, which puts the tag right at the top. I can delete the tag, or I can edit it. And if I edit it, you can rename it if you want, and it will rename everything that you've given that tag to. That's the nice thing. So if you have 20 notes with the tag New York, when you rename the tag, it will rename it for all those. You won't have to go through it and do it for each one. But the other nice thing I like, if you click on that little icon, you can actually change the icon. There's not a ton of choices, but there are a fair amount to give you at least a little bit of customization. So let's say I want to put it as a paperclip. And you'll notice right down there, it changed it right to a paperclip. And hit done. I'm hoping over time maybe they add a way that you can upload your own or link to other ones. But to me, the organization and using the tags is the best way to organize this. And I love that I can actually have multiple tags for the same item. Then the last piece I want to go over is if you, again, 2-finger click on a note or hold down the control button and click on a note, it gives you a few options for that note. You can pin the note to the top, which puts it right to the top of that tag. You can copy the note, copy link to note, copy the note's identifier, and something about copy link to note. So let's say you create a note with a bunch of information, and then you, in your to-do list app, whether it's reminders or, I use Todoist, depending on what app you use to keep all your reminders, you could take that note and post it into a reminder so it links you to that note, which has more information. Really kind of a cool feature. And when I do that video on how all my tools work together, I use that a lot with this and Todoist and my email program, Spark. I have the ability to create links within all of those so they can all work all together. You can open the note in a new window, you can export the note, you can delete it, archive it, again, set the password, or you can duplicate the note. Something I quickly forgot about is just down in the editor for the note editing, you can insert images. So if I click on the image thing, you can select images. So I'll actually select the one I took in the beginning. If you click down in the bottom right-hand corner, click and hold, you can resize it. Not a ton of control of things that you can do, but it does quickly allow you to insert images. If I double click on it, it opens the image in a larger format that I can view a little better. So I hope that gave you a nice little insight into the Notes app Bear. It's one, I've only been using it now for probably about a month, but it is an app I use multiple times throughout the day. I would even say I probably use it at least 15 to 20 times every day. It is probably one of my most heavily used apps that I have on my devices, along with my to-do list app and my calendar app. But if you're someone trying to look for a good notes app, I really hope this becomes one of your options. If you have any questions or want to see a little different part of it or a specific usage feature of it, please leave a comment below and I'll hopefully make a video showing that off, or at least I can reply with, yeah, you can do that, or this is how you do that, and I can give you a little bit of direction. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.